Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here with you today, and I want to express my gratitude for the opportunity to address this gathering. As we find ourselves in the final quarter of the year that has been marked by significant events, it is only fitting that we gather to reflect on the challenges that confront us. Our world's interconnectedness is not only about sharing in each other's success, but also understanding the ripple effects of crisis on a global scale. Take, for instance, the conflict Israel-Hamas after the terrorist attack of Hamas 2.5 weeks ago. It's a stark reminder that problems do not respect boundaries, they transcend nations and continents. Today, authoritarian powers seek to leverage this interconnectedness to further their influence. There are active forces working to destabilize the security and safety of the countries in their vicinity, and not only. I believe that the current moment demands unwavering support for democracy and its defenders. We must unite as the force that counters the destabilizing elements posing a significant threat to democracy. We witness immense bravery among the people, exemplified by last week's election in Poland, which drew staggering numbers to the polls. This election has drawn comparisons to the pivotal year of 1989, when back then, despite propaganda, police, secret police, and the military, the democratic opposition emerged victorious. However, this same courage and unwavering stance must also be mirrored by our highest institutions. Democracy is not an elusive or unattainable goal. It can take many forms, but those forms are well within our reach. I know that every time a head of a government brags about their own country, people think that they are bragging about themselves. But I must express my genuine pride in the progress that Kosovo, my country, has made. Although there is still much work to be done, our accomplishments are noteworthy, whether it's in terms of economic growth, press freedom, investment in sustainable energy, or transformative reforms in social welfare. Renowned international organizations are mirroring this progress. From Freedom House report to Transparency International Corruption Index to Reporters Without Borders. What makes our success even more remarkable is that we've pursued the path of democracy without taking shortcuts. We did not prioritize economic growth over democracy or seek investment at the cost of our principles. We did not court investments from countries that sought to fill demands that were not met by the European Union. Instead, we strengthened economic development by combating corruption and fostering partnerships with European and American companies, as well as those of other Western allies. The same applies to our security needs. Democracy is concrete reality for us, yet so are the threats posed by autocracies, primarily Serbia, significantly aided by its alliance with Putin. Serbia's regression from democracy and aggression to Kosovo are marked by actions as state capture at home and media suppression that then after escalated into threats to my country. As is typical of illiberal countries, they shirk accountability for its recent dark past, including acts of genocide, choosing instead to glorify it. Beyond historical issues, the northern region of Kosovo has been exploited as a hub for drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and cryptocurrency mining. These activities directly conflict with the rule of law and democratic values that Kosovo represents. The relationship between Kosovo and Serbia can be best characterized as a country, Kosovo, working to build itself for the first time, striving for genuine democratic success, while an illiberal country attempts to stifle this progress, employing tactics often employed by figures like Putin. On the 24th of September, 1 month ago, the aggression that we have seen culminated when armed parliamentary groups that had been trained in official military bases in Serbia entered my country and opened fire on the police force, killing one of our police officers. Simultaneously, Serbia engaged in what the US described as unprecedented military build-up along our border. In the days that followed, a substantial amount of evidence pointed to the involvement and planning of a larger invasion by the state itself. This fact was self-evident, as no group of civilians could amass such weaponry and transport it across borders without at least the tacit support of the government. The aggression ceased not out of a desire to withdraw, but because it was strategically outmaneuvered. Since then, we have been left wondering about the potential sequels to this attack. The threat posed by authoritarian countries to Europe is not merely ideological, and we must address it as such. Our northern neighbor continues its military build-up, even receiving supplies from new sources, including a recent shipment from China. The current time is not one to sit back. To ensure Europe's security in the future, it is imperative for European institutions to close the gaps that enable authoritarians to foster acts of aggression and wage war against European democracies and their values. Any vulnerabilities that remain open are certain to be exploited to undermine the proper functioning of our democratic system. Notably, there are gaps in the Western Balkans that have been further widened by protracted and ambiguous process related to EU integration. The future of the countries in the Western Balkans, which are committed to democracy and have demonstrated this commitment clearly, should be aligned with the EU, an entity that mirrors this path clearly. Moreover, there should be mechanisms in place to check and address any anti-democratic behavior exhibited by those on this path. Given the events of the past year, it must be explicitly stated that positioning oneself between Brussels and Moscow effectively equates to siding with Moscow, while misusing European generosity and aid to further the agenda of state capture. This serves as a prime example of the gap that we must actively combat. Thank you very much for your attention.